614 Startups Nation, welcome to another episode of the 614 Startups Podcast. My name is Elio Harmon, your host, and on today's show I have Whitney Poma of Momful. I love that name. Momful is an e-commerce brand helping mothers reach their breastfeeding goals. Now, before we get into the conversation, which I'm sure is going to be a doozy, I gotta stop and say thank you to our sponsors over at AWH. When companies large and small need to solve technological challenges, they turn to AWH. AWH has the experience and expertise to help your company create innovative and disruptive products for the web, mobile, and IoT. Leveraging a deep understanding of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and blockchain, combined with the creativity that comes from their entrepreneurial DNA, AWH gives their clients the competitive advantage. Visit awh.net today and tell them about your project. All right, Whitney, this has been a long time coming, all right? I think initially it was through a rep. Your rep reached out to me and said, I have this interesting company, this interesting founder. I want you to check her out. And so now we're finally here. I've been looking forward to this conversation. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. This is what I love to do. So whenever I'm doing an interview, I'm in a good space. Now, I'm excited to hear about Momful. I'm a dad to a 4-year-old. My wife went through the process, giving birth, being committed to breastfeeding, understanding that that was the healthiest option, but I know it's not easy for everybody. And so we're going to get into the story of Momful, but first we want to get to know you. So why don't you share a bit about your personal and professional background?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. So I'm a mom of a 3-year-old named Kate, and in July we'll be welcoming our second born. My husband and I, Jonathan, so I'm born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, and have always just kind of ended up here. Not necessarily ever planning to kind of be here forever, but it's just worked out that way. This city's been growing so much. And I actually didn't even realize that at this point, with the way Columbus has grown so much, now most people that you meet aren't actually from here, until it was an Uber driver that was asking me questions, like you make small talk. And he asked me where I was from. I told him I was from Columbus, and he turned around and looked at me like, "You are? I haven't met anybody from Columbus." So it hadn't occurred to me until a couple of years ago that that's where Columbus is now, and I think that speaks to its growth. So I met my husband at Miami University back in 2008. We've been married for 10 years. We've had just a lot of success with how much this city has given us, and we love being a part of that community. My professional background, I worked a lot in marketing, corporate marketing, as well as on the agency side. Then I worked at Uber for a little bit, and coming out of maternity leave, that's when I was inspired to have the idea for Momful. And also around the same time, Uber was shutting down their Columbus office, and if I wanted to continue there, I was going to need to move to Chicago, but that just wasn't in the cards for us at the time with where my husband's business was at, and we, like I said, loved Columbus and wanted to stay. So it was the perfect jumping off point for me to really lean into Momful and get that off the ground and think about what was next.
Now we got to get right into it. So doing this podcast long enough, we start to have a lot of things happen, like a lot of firsts. So we had our first fiance kind of bride to be, kind of the husband to be was on first. And that was Fro Fromeyer and Amelia Gandara, right? So they were kind of the first couple where they were both on the show. And your hubby, Jonathan, has been on the show. So this is the first married couple, right? So husband on and then wife on. So you're part of a first on this show as well. Let's get into how difficult. Well, let me not presume that it's difficult. I mean, it's hard enough for me because I'm running a company and working full time, and my wife is working full time. But you guys are running 2 companies simultaneously. What is that like, having 2 entrepreneurs in the house at the same time?
It is always exciting. There's never a dull moment. And a lot of my friends will comment, just about how interesting that is. And mostly they're like, you are so tolerant of risk. So it's definitely not something that we ever pictured really happening in our relationship. When Jonathan and I met in the fall of 2007 at Miami, you could feel an entrepreneurial spirit about him. And I always knew that that would be his destiny. So earlier in our marriage, we got married in 2010. So we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. And it was only about a few years in that he started kind of making the leap into his own thing. And that was a really exciting moment. I was still working full time. And so kind of the beauty of everything, the timing of how everything has come into fruition is that while he was starting his thing, I had the stability of a full-time income and benefits and all of that great stuff. And then as his startup and his endeavors started to become more consistent and more, as they started to become like more, less risky, I was able to kind of ramp up with Momful. I had the idea for Momful around that time. And so things have just really balanced each other out, from, a household management kind of standpoint. But Jonathan has also been pretty much my biggest cheerleader, and hearing him say, "You can do this, Whitney, you can start this," really means a lot to me, because he is himself successful in starting his own thing. And I think that if he reflects back on his time when he was really setting out on launching his own thing, that, I was really there cheering him on. And, there'd be days where he's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to pay myself this month." And it's like the end of the month. And I was like, "Yeah, I kind of noticed that." So, we just work through it together. I think communication is really key. And understanding the trials and tribulations that each founder can kind of be going through and supporting each other through that has been really important to us finding success in managing and making that work.
That's terrific. As an entrepreneur, like you said, back in Miami, you guys kind of had that, part of the attraction was maybe the entrepreneurial energy between the two of you. And entrepreneurs have tons and tons of ideas, right? I get ideas all the time. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a business, right? Yeah. Why, of all the ideas that you've had, did you choose Momful as the company that you were going to start?
Yeah. Hearing you say that makes me reminisce of, when we were newlyweds and we were living in Victorian Village. And I remember many a night sitting with fellow entrepreneurial friends in the Central Ohio area at the Rossi and just spinning ideas for hours. And, I would say, while Jonathan's spirit has been very pronounced always, mine was a little lesser pronounced. So for me, I never really had a ton of ideas that I was like, I could start this, I could start that, I could start this. It was that moment in my life where I finally found something that I was passionate about, with breastfeeding and helping moms to breastfeed, because I really had my own struggle with it. And this really only has been the idea that I've really explored seriously. So Jonathan's ideas happened and came to life a little bit more organically. He was kind of working in one industry that kind of sprouted this other opportunity, and he ran with it. And then another thing has sprouted from there. So he's just kind of seizing those moments when he recognizes them, and it's served us both very well.
All right. So it sounds like, and I was reading the bio, that Momful comes from struggle. So what's the purpose? What's the mission? What's the reason behind Momful? And what's the problem that you're looking to solve?
Yeah. So my struggle was, I had set out to breastfeed, and it was going to be, I knew that it was going to be hard. And then I got into it, and it was by far the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. And I started talking with other friends and then looking into the data and being like, this is a big problem for a lot of women that want to breastfeed, but can't find their way through in order to make it something that they can sustain in their lifestyle for as long as they want. So I went on and found that, 60% of women don't breastfeed as long as they intend to. And there is actually a statistically significant clinical overlap in moms who struggle to breastfeed and those that have postpartum depression, which affects, as many as 10 to 15% of new mothers, at least, with what they believe right now. It could be said that it affects more moms. It's just not as well recognized and established. So, that's meaningful. There are a lot of moms and families, and, as a dad, you mentioned that you've watched your wife kind of go through the challenge of breastfeeding too. When a mom is struggling to breastfeed, it impacts the whole family, and it can impact the baby's health as well. So at my kind of lowest low was when my daughter was 6 weeks old and we went in for her checkup and she was diagnosed with failure to thrive. And that was because her birth weight or her weight had dropped so significantly that, we needed to turn that around. Otherwise we were going to have some very serious consequences to her health. And in that moment, hearing somebody say that, and we really didn't have any idea that she wasn't gaining weight at an appropriate rate. We believed, she's a newborn, she's small, like that's just kind of the way she is and the way she has been. And so when they said those words, failure to thrive, I mean, we were really taken back. So, with Momful, I want to help and prevent other moms from going through what I went through. And breastfeeding is the natural thing, but it doesn't come naturally. And it's also really tough because I think there's a lot of stigma around, you should breastfeed, but don't do it in public, or I don't want to know about it, or, breastfeed, but not too long. And, make sure your child isn't just using you as a pacifier, as a comfort object, so it's a thing that it's a polarizing topic. And with Momful, I hope to make women's and moms' journeys easier in that regard. And right now it's a nutrition brand hoping to nourish moms on their journey, but I see it becoming something much larger beyond nutrition, because a mother's nutrition is a very, very small part of the entire lifestyle that becomes necessary in order to sustain breastfeeding. So it's just, I started in that space because that was the unlock for me. And it's where I could start serving this community, but I hope to grow it into far more than just a nutrition focused brand.
Yeah. And my wife was focused on nutrition ahead of becoming pregnant, during the pregnancy, and her goal is always to get back to that level of commitment, right? Because she had that motivation to do everything that she could to facilitate a healthy pregnancy.
Yeah.
Why is nutrition so important, and where does Momful join a mother along her journey? Is it prior to pregnancy? Is it during the pregnancy? Or is it after?
So right now we play solely in the after delivery phase, so the postpartum phase. And nutrition, after we had that appointment at 6 weeks and that failure to thrive diagnosis with my doctor, I was referred to see an international board certified lactation consultant. IBCLC is the acronym for that. And it, especially as somebody who's always been a very health-minded, nutrition-minded, and similarly, really focused on having great nutrition throughout my pregnancy as much as I could manage with my cravings. And I, she looked at me, we assessed some things like latch and technique, and we talked about, how frequently are you feeding? And then the last portion of my meeting with her was really about, okay, how much are you eating? What kind of nutrition are you getting? And I felt so silly that it hadn't dawned on me until that point that a mom and I was my baby's nutrition. The only thing my baby is consuming at that point in time is breast milk, and it's coming out of my body. So what am I putting in my body to then allow my body to give to her? And that was another eye-opening moment. And so I started focusing on my nutrition and just doing some reading, and found out that the FDA actually has a different set of nutritional guidelines that they recommend for breastfeeding or lactating moms to get. So everything that Momful creates is focused specifically with a mom that is postpartum and breastfeeding in mind. so that she's getting enough nutrients for her body and then enough to pass along to her baby through her breast milk.
All right. And is Momful kind of for mothers who find themselves in a situation similar to yours where it's identified that maybe, you know, their child or maybe themselves aren't reaching certain milestones, and then Momful is the intervention, or is Momful used proactively, meaning you don't have to show that there is an issue. You could use Momful proactively. How are you addressing that issue?
That's a great question. It's designed to be used proactively, although I believe right now most moms don't know yet to go looking for that solution or that kind of support until there has been a problem. So I believe that currently most of my customers are finding me in the middle of the night when they're up nursing their baby and they are concerned that they're not producing enough milk or that their baby isn't gaining enough weight. And they, you know, while that you're sitting in these nursing sessions and you're all, you know, kind of by yourself other than your infant, which is feeding, you're on your phone and you're looking. And I've actually observed the traffic in my website. I have higher traffic at night. I have a lot of purchases that come through in the middle of the night. And it just goes to show kind of the lifestyle these women are living in order to meet their commitment or their goal that they're hoping to achieve with breastfeeding.
Yeah, and you know, nighttime for babies, you know, maybe you just can't soothe them, or you feel like they're not getting enough to eat. Sometimes, if you're a single mother, you're looking for any solution, right? Something to help. I want to really get into the nutrition behind Momful and what products you offer, but I want to take a quick break because we got more folks to thank. Okay, so hang on there. I'll come right back to you. This podcast is being brought to you by Book and Street, which provides finance and accounting solutions for startups in the Midwest and beyond, from strategic financial support to bookkeeping and everything in between. They've got your back office covered. Let their experienced team of finance and accounting professionals help your startup get it right from the start. Learn more at bookandstreet.com and set up your free 30-minute consultation with their team today. All right, nutrition. As an adult, if it's only up to me, I convenience eat. I know my nutrition is not what it needs to be. But like you said, as a mother, there's this heightened awareness that you are the primary source of nutrition for your newborn. So what is the nutritional approach that Momful takes to make sure that moms are getting the nutrition that they need in order to provide that nutrition for their newborns? And then what kind of products do you have out there in the market for folks to buy?
Yeah. So Momful's products are all designed to be very convenient for mom to take. So, you know, ideally, if we all eat the way that, you know, we should be, and we're not, you know, super busy or super exhausted from being new moms, we're actually obtaining all of this nutrition through our everyday food, and not needing to kind of turn to vitamins or supplements to, you know, offset anything that we might not be getting or making up for any gaps in our diet. But what I found with Momful or with my own journey was that when you're a mom, yes, you still care so much about your diet, but quite frankly, you're putting yourself last because you're also caring for a newborn and going through all these different changes in your life. And so it's easy at the end of the day to forget to eat. It's easy at the end of the day to not have had time to get a healthy, well-rounded meal in your body. And so vitamins and supplements became that convenient way for me to make sure that I felt good that, you know, even if I didn't get to that, you know, beautiful, well-rounded meal and, you know, really get those nutrients in through foods, which would be the preferred route, that I had a really great postnatal multivitamin, a lactation supplement, a really high quality fish oil supplement to have that in my diet. So that's why with everything that Momful is now and that we hope to create in the future, they will all have that convenience element, because we know that mom's time is very constrained, and she's often putting herself last during this critical part of her life, when really her nutrition is incredibly important, more now than ever, perhaps.
All right. So, what products specifically, what lines do you have out there when you talk about supplements and things like that?
Yeah. So we currently have 3 products available and are looking to bring more to market, hopefully later this year, but we'll see. So the first is a postnatal multivitamin, and we recommend that moms start taking this after delivery. And it really is just a comprehensive multivitamin that is similar. Most women by this point are used to following the recommendation from their OB-GYNs, that they're taking a prenatal vitamin. And actually, at least in my experience, the recommendation was, if you are going to breastfeed, make sure you continue your prenatal vitamin, which is definitely a great place to start. But in my research after the fact, I discovered that a prenatal multivitamin is great, but there are some specific things after delivery that mean that you need different levels of the nutrients that are than what is currently found in most prenatals on the market. So we formulated our postnatal to be very specific to that woman's needs during that phase. Then, in addition to that, our postnatal multivitamin is called Bombod. And then we have another product that we really recommend going along with that, kind of a sister product, which is Mom Brain. And that is just a high quality fish oil, so that mom is getting those really important omega-3 fatty acids, DHA and EPA. And some research has actually shown that a mom's, mom brain is like actually a scientific thing. I feel like sometimes we joke about it, like, oh, my mom brain forgot about that today, but it's actually a scientific thing. The gray matter in a mom's brain is different for up to a year after she delivers. And maybe as long as 2, it just hasn't been researched much longer than that. And so if she's going into subsequent pregnancies, then she continues to be depleted in those omega-3 fatty acids. So having a consistent DHA and EPA source in your diet throughout your postpartum phase and beyond is a really great thing to have. So we recommend Mombod and Mom Brain. Then for some of our moms that are breastfeeding, if they're feeling concerned that their milk supply is decreasing or dipping, which can kind of happen. So, your supply as a breastfeeding mom could be great. And then depending on what's going on in your life, if you are having some like lifestyle changes where it's introducing more stress, you can notice that your supply is decreasing. And so we have a lactation supplement called Ounces, and that could be used anecdotally. So, through that moment of that stressful period where you believe that your supply is dipping, you can take that, and in a few days you should notice an increase. Or you could take it every single day, which for me is what I found to be important in my routine. And as an exclusive pumper, which meant that I was using a breast pump to remove breast milk from my body, I was not able to successfully reestablish breastfeeding at the breast with my daughter. So because I was exclusively pumping, I had a really keen awareness of exactly how much my body was producing. And on days when I would forget my lactation supplement, I would notice a decrease. So I did take it every day, but we don't necessarily recommend that everybody takes it every day. It's kind of whatever works for you and what you find is helping you in your journey.
All right. And it's in terms of, because I know a lot of times these things work together, is it recommended that you take the Mom Bod, the Mom Brain, and if you are experiencing issues with a milk supply, to take that? Can all 3 be taken together?
Yes, which leads me to our 4th product. So the 4th product actually is something that we call the daily regimen, and that includes a daily dose of each of those 3 in a super convenient packet. So when a mom comes to the Momful website, she can subscribe to any of our products. She could subscribe to the regimen. And so each month at her door, a pouch of 30 daily packets will show up. And so just every single day, she can grab a packet and go, and she can kind of take it whenever and wherever mom life takes her. And that was born out of when I was going through the experience. I was like reordering one thing and running out of another. And then every week I felt like an old lady because I'm like, counting out my pills into a little pill box, and then I'm having to remember to take them. I'm like toting around this giant pill box every week. And so that process became very cumbersome, and it was prohibiting me from staying consistent with my routine. And consistency was very key for me. If I missed a day of my supplements, I really felt that in my mood, my energy, and my supply. So I wanted to make sure that that was easy by design in Momful's product. So the daily regimen is kind of our primary product that we have.
Awesome. And it's one of those things that you always look for, a kind of a complete package, right? Things that work well together to help solve a problem. Like you said, for convenience, folks don't really have the time to eat the perfect meal every day. And so having supplementation that helps is very important. All right, let's talk about the actual running of the business, right? So all of this is great.
Yeah.
You could have a great idea, you can have a great product, but you still got to get it to market. So how are folks finding you? And what are some things that you're thinking about in terms of growing your business, challenges, obstacles? What are you finding in your day-to-day?
Yeah. So right now, most customers are finding me through search. So it's a mom who has a concern, and she's taking to Google to find that answer, and she's finding Momful. Pinterest is another common place where moms go to find out a lot of information during this phase of life. Best diaper brands, best stroller this, what should my baby's sleep routine be, secrets for pumping more milk, whatever it could be. So Pinterest is also a popular spot for moms to find me. And then influencers on Instagram are a great source as well. They give that word of mouth. I think the thing as a founder that I'm having a difficult time doing is when I'm working with influencers, you really have to find a mom influencer who's in that spot of, I'm breastfeeding, I'm willing to talk about it on my Instagram channel, and I'm open to being vulnerable and sharing that, like, I'm having a challenge or I'm using these products or things like that. So unlike potentially other brands that are out there with Momful serving such a community as niche as breastfeeding, scaling an influencer strategy is a little bit more difficult than maybe some would find, depending on the topic of their company.
Yeah, and I think that the influencer space and vulnerability, it's kind of tough, right? So although some people do it well, I think it's something that I think people want to be careful with, because it involves another human being and sharing stories and things like that. So I can understand why that would be a challenge. Let's talk about issues around supply, production, and getting that to market. So are you handling that from from the start to the end? Are you working with other companies to help you with supply, and you manage distribution? How does that work for you?
Sure. So I work with a contract manufacturer here in the United States. They are in Billings, Montana, and so Momful's products, Momful is mama founded and doctor formulated. Their head scientist there is a double PhD who's been working in the vitamin and supplement industry for 20 years. So these products have been formulated with him, and they produce for me, and then I bring them into bulk here to Columbus and package them, and then fulfill the orders all through the website. Momful.co is the only location right now that they can be purchased from. So I oversee it nearly end to end, other than the contract manufacturer. Like, I'm obviously not making these capsules myself. So.
All right, we'll get there, right? You got to start somewhere, right?
I know.
Owning it end to end, we understand profit margins can grow that way. So as you start to gain traction, it might look attractive to go upstream. I'm sure you're not completely, kind of not even looking that way. That's an interesting way to look as well. And you could probably, through your own research and development, develop other products as well. So that's awesome. Yeah. Let's talk about, because I think you're in a space where some of our listeners might be, which is they're doing the fulfillment part, right? And that is, there's the customer service, there's the systemization of things. How have you been able to put together a system to handle not only where you are now, but where you think you're going? What are some of your thoughts around order fulfillment and dealing with the customer service, things like returns, etc.?
Yeah, honestly, what I have established right now is not super sophisticated. It's so I'm a self-funded solopreneur. I'm the only person working full-time in my business. I tap into contractors when I need them. And so it's me that I start my days with picking and packing and shipping my orders at the post office. And then I also field any customer questions, service requests through email and get those back out. And I think, something that's on my mind right now is it, how I want to approach my maternity leave, which is going to be coming up this summer. And so I'm trying to think, well, can I pick and pack a little bit ahead of time? Can I start partnering with a local company to help me fulfill those orders? How do I want to go through that? So that's going to be a great force function for my business and for me, and as a challenge to me as a founder to undergo, and it will help, kind of push the envelope into, pushing Momful into a brand that, isn't just run by one person full time right now. So I'm excited for that, a little scared, but kind of, I wish I could say that I had those answers on here's a great company to ship out your orders. And I love working with this partner, but I haven't found those partners yet. And my scale so far has been a little bit small to warrant making that investment, but I know that day is coming pretty soon.
That's terrific. I'm going to let you have the last thought, but I have one more thank you, all right, to the folks that make this show possible. And at 614 Startups, we're going through a lot of changes. Trust me. You see the studio here, right? We're growing up as we go. And some of these changes include a new website, a rebrand, updates in marketing, and growth strategy. Undertaking all the marketing that you have to do as a founder or even with a team can be so overwhelming. So naturally, we turn to our sponsor, Studio MFP, and my guy, Mike Faga. In order for us to take our brand and marketing to the next level, I was worried about cost and how much time it would take, and even the level of commitment I needed to take on, since I'm also running everything else at 614 Startups. But wow, and that's a real wow, Studio MFP has taken care of everything. In just our first hour together at Studio MFP's office, I really feel confident and relieved that I can rely on them as my marketing partner. Check them out for a free consultation at studiomfp.com and start growing your business today. All right, final word from you, Whitney. I'm excited, right, about a product like Momful changing the lives of moms and newborns across the world. I can already see the vision. But in your words, what's next for you?
Oh, that's a big question. What's next for Momful? I really want for Momful to become a breastfeeding mom's best friend. There's a lot of women out there that even when they're preparing, when they're talking with their friends who have gone through this journey, you really need somebody in it with you to truly understand where you're at that point in time. And I would love for Momful to serve as that. So, that would be a pretty big jump from where we currently are right now. We're a very small part of her day. We're hopefully, we intentionally by design are trying to be something very easy and convenient that she doesn't need to think about because she's got to get back to her other priorities. But with Momful, I really want to be in it with our customers and with our moms and supporting them. So looking for solutions and ways that we can continue to grow the brand to become that is where I've got my sights set next.
All right, amazing. Now, I got to leave the folks with my final word. And this is what I was thinking the entire time, Whitney, is as this brand grows, we know that there's a need. But my heart goes out to the mothers who may at 2 o'clock in the morning not be able to do a search or not be on Pinterest or not be on Instagram where they can hear this message from an influencer. And I'm going to keep my eye out for what Momful does in that space. And when you figure that all out, because I know that's probably been laying on your heart as well. I would love to have you back so we can talk about that. I think one of the things that we want to see from the 614 Startups community is, of course, to reach the market, right? The folks who can afford to pay, but also changing lives for those who might not be able to. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the 614 Startups podcast. That's a wrap. Whitney, thank you for coming on. I'm going to do my sign off. Hang out with me for a little bit. Let's chat. But you can find this and all episodes on our website, 614startups.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and all your favorite podcasting platforms. Don't forget to subscribe and write a review. If you would like updates sent to your inbox, you can sign up for our weekly newsletter on the website. To engage in the 614 Startups community, follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I got to get on Pinterest. What am I going to do on Pinterest, Whitney? I got to figure that out, all right? At 614 Startups to join the conversation. For sponsorship opportunities like all the folks you heard from and collaborations, email us at info@614startups.com. Until next time, peace.